gratitude is another force that people are not aware, Justin, of how powerful it is. It is one of the most powerful forces known to mankind. And when you live in a space, in a state of gratitude, it opens roads for you and avenues that will change your life. Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. I like to take my time right here and welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive time. 24 hours offered to every man and every woman on this planet. What we do with that 24 hours, man, will tell me everything about you, man. They say it'll expose your sins. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It created Justin and it gave him some stuff that we want access to. What is those stuff? His wisdom, knowledge, insight. Those are the things that we label, but they deposit that in him at a price. There was a cost to him to gain that. And so we want to honor him that he's coming and sharing his time. Number one, once spent, it's spent. And the fact that he's allowing himself to become vulnerable enough to allow us to see certain things about him. Justin, thank you so much, man, for coming here at Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor, man. As I mentioned to you, I love tossing this question to people. Like I said, I came from corporate America, and I remember having to learn write out my 30-second or whatever they call that thing, my elevator speech. And I had my staff do it when I was, all that stuff in marketing. And so I ask this question usually, Justin, because I want to let the audience know as well that their life is not all about themselves. There's a responsibility to allow themselves the opportunity to serve. My question to you is, how do you serve mankind?
Currently, it's been working on myself and healing myself in order to be the best kind of vessel and servant for others. I've found that work, that self-work, has really allowed the best version coming forward to be able to um, help and guide others on that same journey.
Yeah, I always tell them, Justin, I said, you got to hurry up and get here, but there's a price. There's a price that that you got to pay, but it's a beautiful price, and that price is simply surrendering to find out who you truly are, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
Is the price of surrender. One of our customs here, Justin, is to go back. I call it the beginnings of our beginnings. We have spaces that we visit in our life as we are becoming, quote unquote, an adult, and the very first space that you and I visit, apart from the hospital, when we land on this beautiful place, is that family unit. That unit there, we're going to stay there for a couple of years. Sometimes it's 16 to 18 years, and then we're out of there. But in this location, we're going to learn a couple of things. Communication skills, our beliefs are going to be developed right there. But we're going to start learning habits and different things like that. Our mindset is going to be develop here, limitations and growth, whatever that mindset is within that family unit. How was your family unit?
It was definitely a struggle. I would say the lessons learned were more what not to do. And that took some, understanding and reworking, kind of coming into adulthood and figuring out, you know, I think with everybody goes through the process of, okay, that's what you experienced, right? Like you said, you're placed on earth and those are the people that are guiding you and trying to figure out what to keep and what to adjust or what to change moving forward. And so it was definitely a hard realization to, um, you know, decide what to keep and what to change because there were a lot of not negative, but maybe not the best choices happening. So moving into adulthood for me was deciding, the things that were beneficial that I wanted to hold on to and share with others, and the things that I needed to let go of and kind of find other ways of doing things, especially with communication, having better communication, better vulnerability, more openness. That was definitely something that came later.
Yeah, that's the space that we start. As I said, I gave a list of all those different aspects that we learn here, communication, and our beliefs. And all of this is based on the situations that are in the home through mom and dad and siblings and all those different things and how that space is managed. But all of that energetic behavior, language, and hurt and pain, and many of those things that usually happen there. It gives you a nice foundation by which we are going to now move through our life. And the first phase is the traumatic situation that we come out of is survival. The first stage that we begin to operate in is we develop ways by which we survive in that state. And as we move through life, the journey is to come to begin to unpack all of this survival mode that we've been living on for X amount of years. As you're moving through life, Justin, and your situation in your family, as you said, you're learning what not to do. As you are learning that, those principles there, and your communication skills is being developed there as well. What was your communication skills with others outside of the family? How did you manage, Justin, as a young man, in dealing with others?
My go-to communication style was typically um, a lot of humor, a lot of deflection, a lot of sarcasm, and I think a lot of people, including myself, develop that as a defense, using humor as a defense and trying to change things or lighten to deal with harsh situations. And I saw it as a positive thing, being able to have a sense of humor after going through dark times and coming to see over the years kind of how it lands with other people, how it affects other people, being able to see it from others' points of view, see myself from their point of view and figuring out kind of where that came from and also how to have the same kind of intention, but doing it in a healthier way. And, realizing that being sarcastic and, continually joking around is a way of keeping people at a distance and figuring out a way to still connect with people, but doing it in a way that is more vulnerable was definitely a big change for me.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's we learn how to navigate. We have to try and survive during that time in those dark spaces, and so we will develop. One of the things about how brilliant people are, we will come up with ways by which we are able to manage ourselves there. And many people become people pleasers. People become comedians. We use different venues, if you will, that we create to alleviate all of that as we are navigating through our life. As you're moving through life, Justin, and you're looking towards college, if you will, what was your outlook for college as to the field, the profession you picked? Why did you pick that particular profession, if you will?
So I had a little different trajectory kind of in that um, period of life and kind of moving through traditional education, um, not finding it particularly beneficial or helpful. So right after graduating high school, I decided to take an extended trip, and it's that kind of cliche, finding myself at early adulthood, and so the I guess it was about 6 months after graduating and not really having a plan or a purpose, decided to travel the country. So packed up my car and started driving west. I was living in Chicago at the time and had some ideas and friends around the country. So I spent, I think it was about 3 months driving across the country, visiting places, seeing, you know, cities and states and national parks that I'd never seen before, um, as kind of, an education of sorts, right? There's traditional education and, the trajectory that a lot of people follow going to college, like you said, and figuring out a job. And so I wanted to, explore and see things and, meet people and have that be more of an education in the traditional sense.
Yeah, I always tell people the traveling aspect is probably one of the best learning adventures that they'll ever experience in their life. Jump in your car, jump on the bike, and just go. Get out of your
Yeah.
comfort and become. And I tell them, anytime you travel for any extensive period of time, you will come back changed. It'll change your being. It'll change everything about you, how you interact with people. It expands your ability to become more empathetic. You are open to others, if you will, and you're getting to see people at different levels in their need and lifestyle and so forth. And it makes you much more accepting. And if you're just caught in this little bubble, not knowing anything, and you become pretty ignorant as an individual that haven't expanded in learning. And that's how I feel. I think if you talk to a lot of people and where we would label that individual as an ignorant individual, it's usually someone who hasn't traveled at all, hasn't been exposed to different culture and people and all the different stuff. So yeah, there's a degree of that in there. I know I'm going to get emails and all kinds of stuff about that, just but I said what I said, and it's okay. So here you are,
Well, it's
man. You
only
chose
because
this
it's
route
true
and
and it
you're
hits
out there.
when it lands
Go
with
ahead.
people, that's why it causes that reaction.
Yeah. I say what I say, man. I don't care what people say about me. I've grown up a little. So you're here, you took the chances and you stepped out. While you were doing that, what was that education like for Justin? What did it do to him as an individual? Again, this young man that said, all right, let me try a different path.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was recognizing the importance of connection with people and relationships. There were, I would say, a lot of the time during that experience that I was on my own, like I would meet up with friends in different places. That was, a small percentage of it, meeting people out and, hiking in national parks and different places. But I would say definitely more than half of the time I was on my own. So, whether it's driving solo, hiking solo, eating solo, starting a fire, doing, laundry in a laundromat somewhere, grocery shopping, just sitting in the woods, whatever it is, it was a lot of time alone. And that was really the first, I would say a majority of my, you know, young life as a kid and as a teen, there's friends and family and people around. So having that isolation and also realizing it was something that I chose to do, it's like at any point I could just, go back to my norm and, be around people. And so it was a hard thing to face, but also, very, I would say, defining moment of, I feel like there's two sides to everything. I definitely appreciated the solitude and the time for reflection and for growth. And then also having that desire for connection with people and then appreciating it. So, when I was able to meet and talk with people and share experiences or reconnect with friends and family, um, that level of gratitude and appreciation for connecting with other people was definitely greater.
Yeah, when you travel, and I tell people, especially when you're doing solo travel, you have a couple of companions that are with you all the time. There's loneliness and then there's solitude. And each one of those companions will produce different outcomes depending on what you want from them. But one of my favorite places, of course, is always solitude because that's where the power is. That's where you go internally. You go and, as you said, you now enjoy you to get to know who you are, to see the dark spaces, the ifs, the whys, the hows, the mechanism, all those things you're talking and investigating in that place of solitude is a place of strength. And then there's the aspect of the loneliness also. And I said, as you know how to deal with that. And that is basically stepping out and going and engaging in conversation with others. But those are your companions as you're moving through life. And you get more, so on and so forth. Gratitude is another force that people are not aware, Justin, of how powerful it is. It is one of the most powerful forces known to mankind. And when you live in a space, in a state of gratitude, it opens roads for you and avenues that will change your life. As you, a young man, again, looking and living and experience this and doing your meditation through your hiking and all these different things, because those are forms of meditation as you're walking through life. Talk to us as to your growth. How was it accelerating in your mind? What was happening to you looking in at your space? Again, you're here by yourself. You're doing this. You're a little against the grain, if you will. And doing that alone, I tell people, you have disconnected yourself from the default programming because most people would have taken it out of school. So the fact that you were disconnected, you're on a totally different plane, totally number one, right there. So you're able to experience a lot more. What was your experience there, Justin? How did it really begin to impact you? Were you looking at this young man and say, okay, I can see this happening as a result?
I think the kind of forced growth and introspection allowed for maturing in a shorter period of time, kind of coming right out of the negative environment that I was growing up with and realizing um, that's not the only experience. Countless other, you know, ways of life, ways of being, ways of living. And I would say, it didn't really give me like okay, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, this is my path and purpose now. But it did open it up to possibilities. And so, you know, having definitely more of a connection with nature was something I'd say that was a big thing that came out of it. Growing up in a big city and in the suburbs, it's not like, there's mountains and, you know, lakes and rivers and huge forests to go and explore. So realizing that that was something that speaks to me and that I connect with. So that's like, okay, moving forward in life, choosing places to live, places to explore. It's more the feel of an area versus like, I'm going to move here for, a job, or I'm going to move here because of, this logical reason. Choosing places to be closer to nature was definitely a priority after that.
And as you were, the Australians will call it the walkabout, as you're
Yeah.
engaging in this walkabout,
Yeah.
Justin, as you are now, because we always have that place where we get to and say, hey, I need to now come out and start adulting, if you will.
Right. Right.
When you began to move towards that aspect of, okay, let me head into what we call today life, living our life. Where did you end up and how did that process happen, if you will? Usually there's some synchronicity to the process as we're moving
For
through.
sure.
How did that pan out in your life and it took you to that?
So yeah, it was, I would say, a huge, synchronicity, a huge kind of turning point coming home. I met my wife to be probably a month after I got back home. And it was through one of her friends, and had some, getting to know you periods kind of over the summer, through her friend group, my friend group, but started dating, I would say, within a couple months. And that entirely changed my trajectory or idea of what I thought I was going to do. I was, I think, 18 at the time, and maybe turning 19 right around the time that we met. And it's been over 20 years now. We're
Oh,
still
congrats.
together, couple kids. And so that was a huge defining moment because as soon as, we were connected, I made decisions based on our relationship. But, I moved places, to be with her and change things around in order to make the relationship work, and, long distance and travel and changing jobs and all kinds of things just to make that a priority.
Yeah. As you're doing all the taking jobs and all kinds of things, I tell people it doesn't matter what you do. I don't care if you're sweeping the streets. I don't care what you do. All of that knowledge that you gain will be used at some point. And I always tell people to tell them that so that they can take the stress off of being where they are and not, oh, this and that and all the negative talk about your job. Sometimes it's just good just to relax, make your plans, but and I tell people have the mentality that you're saying to yourself, I'm just squatting here. But in the meantime, I'm going to learn some things from this area, principles, whatever it is you're going to learn. Those principles are going to be very key in your personal development later on in your life when you have located, if you will, your assignment. As you're moving through life and the family and all, everyone comes and we all know what the responsibility of family, what it does to an individual, especially a man, in order to become that individual to take care of his family as you're moving through your life, Justin, and you made the adjustment to be with your now wife, and you are living, if you will. As you are living, how was Justin doing there? Because here was this young man that began a different route from 99% of everyone else. As a young man in your school, I'm sure the graduating class that you had, you probably are the only one that ever took that route. Maybe another few, a couple when you put them all together. 99% of them went through the educational route. How was Justin doing um, with all of the jobs, the family responsibility? How was he holding up? And again, this guy stepped out from the programs, if you will.
There were definitely high points and low points. I think navigating each new phase comes with its own challenges and its own positives. So I would say, being able to learn from each new experience and kind of each new stage in life was, I think I take some time in each kind of like new environment to kind of get my bearings and, gain a foothold in terms of, I don't know, recalibrating, I guess, to your new normal. But I really like that the hard times,
Hmm.
I guess
Yeah.
it's, being able to embrace the challenge is something that I really appreciate about myself. And it's not that I necessarily, look for hard things or look for challenges. Sometimes maybe controlled challenges, but when things are unknown and there's lots of new decisions, new choices, new hurdles, I really thrive in those experiences. I think because of how much insight and knowledge and awareness you get in those times. So yeah, it's been such a learning experience to kind of go through uh, you know huge life events, especially with a partner. Like I said, my wife and I have been together for over 20 years. It's like everything that we do together. So it's, we learn about each other, we learn about ourselves, we learn as a couple. And that's been a huge, you know, kind of source of strength to be able to do that together.
So how did you navigate, Justin, to create again, because these are always synchronicities in life as things come in and you talk about the hard times. And I can attest that being one that walk in solitude, that's where you get your strength. And so you are aware of you when the hard times comes because you've been there in the solitude. And a lot of people in our society is afraid of going. The Western civilization society is afraid to experience that solitude because we have TV and everything that we develop so that we don't get there. Talk to me about your synchronicity as to how you began to create the Briggs, consulting. How did that come about, and how did it bring you to what you're doing today? How did that transition take place? Talk to me about your initial state of stepping out and doing it, and what it is today?
Yeah, it came from kind of, I would say, my life's biggest traumatic event. I was struck by lightning about 10 years ago. Tomorrow will be the 10th anniversary of when it happened. So I guess, healing process and almost like a transformation process that I was, thrust into, um, having that happen and kind of everything that followed was the catalyst for doing what I do now. So there were, a lot of periods kind of in the brief aftermath, and then, for a while afterwards where experiencing things and, healing from things, both, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It was, something that was such a large event that was, these things were brought to the forefront pretty forcefully. And it was definitely something that I needed to go through and asked to go through, but a very harsh lesson to learn. And so after kind of coming out of, I would say, like the dark night of the soul period of, when things are kind of the most unknown and the scariest, in terms of, transformation and a new journey, I had support from friends and family and from people who not necessarily, the exact same situation, but, similar periods of life, and getting support from people and having the help navigating that period was, you know, beyond grateful for that. That was really the point at which I knew, how you were talking about learning and kind of letting go of things in order to become a servant for others, and seeing the need for that, and talking to people kind of once being on the other side of it. So, like you said, all the, things that we do throughout life and all the jobs, I've worked in education and worked in therapy and worked as an athletic coach, in different forms of each over the years. There's so many beneficial aspects to each of those things. So where I'm at currently is an amalgamation of all of those things and taking pieces that I think work the best from each, and combining it into something that I can um, present to others, as a roadmap and as a way of moving forward and showing, these are my experiences, these are other people's experiences, these are skills and tools and things that have benefited me and helped countless people. And so if, someone is on that, you know, journey or wanting to embark on a major transformation, having help and guidance and assistance is invaluable. So for me, being able to do that for others has been huge for me.
Yeah, it's the way one. It's a powerful story, Justin. And again, the dark night of the soul, that journey. It is the only way. I'm 63. It's the only way that I've ever seen where character is given birth. I don't know of character being developed, fine-tuned more than anything than that dark period, because it makes us go deeper and we learn a lot about ourselves. But also you mentioned that you acquire your team, and we can't do this thing by ourselves. We have to find our tribe and walk with our tribe, because we all have life, and living is not a linear process. It is up, down, sideways, and so forth. But when one has a compass, whatever that compass is in you, that is able to bring you back in, and you have your team on the side that encourages you, when you go low, if you understand what I'm talking about, when you're in that dark places and you don't have anyone else, you don't even have the strength to know how you're going to come out. And a friend or a family member will come and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And that conversation will give you the power and the strength to step up and move forward that you never know you had. And those are the things that the dark time of the soul is there for, to you to see who you are, to get your compass right, and then to bring your team and now put you onto this place, because it's in that dark place is where you're going to find your assignment. And when you come out of there and you have located your assignment, then you will, which becomes a part of your compass and will now direct you into where you want to go, or where you have to go. In other words, Justin said now he's able to made himself available to help people that are going through those dark times, because he got some information from there. He brought some tools, wisdom, knowledge, insights that he gained there. And so you guys are listening to our conversation. I'm going to provide all the stuff for you to get to Justin. And again, on the onset, I mentioned some of his courses, the transformational course and the growth course. Get into those things. Learn about who you are, man. Change the trajectory of your life and your family. You need it and your family need it. As you started this, and you can only develop your process as you go through your dark times, because you're learning how to pick from this, pick from that. And when you put together that process, Justin, that highway by which you're able to navigate someone to drive on that road to gain their access to their destination, when you started putting all of that together, if you will, talk to me about that process. And then I want you to talk to me about, because you are your first client. But then I want you to talk to me about your other client that you tried this thing on, if you will. You did it on you. You got to go through all of the testing and the fakeness. Can I do this? Imposter syndrome, all that stuff you go through. But then you have an opportunity to really test this thesis out. Talk to me about when you tested on you first, and then one of those cases that you remember when you were able to assist someone through their dark time of the soul, and what was that like for you and for that individual?
For myself, it was definitely a lengthy process. I feel like from the onset of the idea of, okay, this is what I want to kind of dedicate my work life, I would say. It's not a complete dedication. People, I feel like, say they dedicate their life to something, it's all encompassing. So for myself, it's always been about balance and understanding there's, different pieces. There's myself and my own progress in terms of my own, work and healing and growth and my journey. There's also my family that needs my time and energy, and there's my my own kind of goals and ambitions, I guess, in terms of the things that I want to, I guess, accomplish, in the physical sense, and then being able to have the time and the space and energy for others. It's the work that I do, but it's not the only thing that I do. I think a lot of times, I've talked to therapists and coaches and guides and that sort of thing, where it can take over a lot of times, and it's understandable because there's such a power, I guess, that comes along with it. There's the attachment, maybe is a better word, where I think once the ego gets involved, the ego can be very, strong and powerful. And the act of, providing something for somebody else and seeing their transformation, the idea of being a part of that is intoxicating. And I think so. The process for myself was recognizing that that is a reality,
Yeah.
and it's not, good or bad or, one way or the other. It just is. And so a lot of my work, both, personally and professionally, has been trying to, as much as possible, detach from that ego, the pull or the connection that's there, or the desire that's there. And so the process for my own growth and transformation, and kind of like you said, putting myself through it as a client for the first time, um, that was a lot of the focus, and trying to understand, the balance of things, like I said, and then moving forward, having that kind of as the framework for others to see how it fits for them. Not everybody's the same, not everybody has the same experiences and backgrounds and beliefs and structures. So having something that is flexible and malleable in terms of, things that you want to prioritize or focus on, um, and knowing that that needs to be the case for, everybody in, individual situations, was kind of at the forefront for the idea for, coaching other clients. And I would say I think the um, kind of most notable interaction with a client in terms of uh, where I saw um, the greatest um, improvement, not only for them in their journey, but for my own, uh, I guess, the process of, being uh, a quality coach, a good coach. The it's I guess it's hard to describe um, the way in which I felt I was able to provide for them, and
Yeah.
um, give them tools that suited their situation, because I felt like I understood at least their past and their struggles, and being able to remove myself as much as I could from it. And instead of saying, this worked for me, how about you try this?
Yeah.
Really putting myself in their shoes to say, um, this might be helpful and beneficial because of, where you're at and where you've been and where you want to go. And then I guess the balance in myself afterwards, because there was such a feeling of purpose and gratitude, and like I did something,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
was able to be of service and be helpful and help this person on their journey. So I guess the pride aspect and dealing with that, and, you know, dealing with my own ego during that process, because it's such a weird thing to be of service and have this kind of reflection back, like I was saying, with boost your ego, but then
Yeah.
also knowing you are benefiting if you detach from your ego. So it's like a contradictory um, feeling, and working through that has been pretty wild.
Yeah. I think it's a validation that your your gift that you're doing is
Yeah.
working and is
Yeah. Yeah.
affected and effective. And when you get that validation, I don't even think so much just in that it's ego. I think it's more the validation. Like, yeah, this is what and I'm seeing the result of it. And I think there's a degree of, yeah, I'm here. I wasn't crazy, if you will, if you understand what I'm saying, because you put so much to get to where you're at, and then when you're doing it and you get to see it, you witness it, and you go, wow, yeah, this is yeah, I belong here, and it's a hard road to get there. But I asked Justin that because I wanted the listener to get an opportunity to hear how his approach is when he's dealing with different people. And again, it's not a one size fit all, as he said. he listens and so forth, and he's able to guide you so that you can obtain that freedom that you're looking for, the truth in your situation, and the truth is going to set you free. Justin, man, I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and sharing with us your journey, your story. And again, you guys are listening. We're going to provide his links. Get there, get into his services, man, and change your life. This is what it's all about. You've been living a certain way for a long time and getting no result. And you know what they say about that. Step into Justin's space and drink from him so that he can guide you into your new life that you're looking and that you're seeking for. Justin, again, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.